So, as you recall, just some background now, city receives about 200,000 currently in hotel motel tax revenue. We take off the top of that 25,000 for Parks and Rec. And then we have a 28 agreement both with Bravo and with CVB, or otherwise known as Catch Des Moines, for 2/7 each of that revenue. So that's the total revenue, 2/7. So 2/7 of 200,000 is 57,143. Goes to both those organizations. So that means that what's left over for civic organization requests is a little bit under 61,000. So a little bit more background. For civic organization make a request, they have to complete the application. They must be the request must be related to economic development per the state of Iowa auditor. They must be a 501c3 organization or a unit of government, and any amount, like the total amount of the request over 60,000, it will be covered by city reserves, which we only have just under 61,000. So as you recall, this was the request that had come in, and earlier I sent you the packet of those requests to you. And you can see those total 114,500. So what I'm going to do now, stop, allow you all to talk, and I ask you all to come here to talk about what you would like to, how you would like to see that distribution, and if you want to go over 60,000 or 61,000, that's fine. We'll have to, as I said, pick it out and come up with that, finding that somehow other way. But currently it's at 114,500.
Comments, folks?
What I would like to have us at some point in time, we need to, and I don't know if tonight, if the intention is tonight, that talk about the future of this and what we're going to do before coming up this winter or December when we have the thing, so everybody understands. But I guess my thoughts on that going into that conversation would be to me, I think we should cap. It started out as people are asking for $500, $1,000, $2,000. Now we get $50,000. And more. And so it's just going to keep going up. So I think if nothing more than we can cap it, because that way then we can share with, so we can help more organizations than just one or two. But I've also talked to some people with some other organizations, some other communities that they don't, because they base it off of what's the most important need. And so, part of me is I just soon help more people rather than one or two few people. But I guess in looking at that, I would be more interested in whether we come up with a cap of we're going to give $4,000 or $5,000, $10,000 awards and then try to fund the other ones that are less. We do have some new ones that have not been on there. We've got some other ones that have been on there a while back, or have been on there for a number of times. And then at some point in time, I think we also need to take into account what really gets a return on, what's the best return on investment, and I think that's going to maybe take a little bit more information from people going forward. But anyway, so
Just to help out further the discussion, I have on the screen now breakdown of the awarded last year, and then what we request this year, and then column for council direction this year. It'll add up at the bottom. So as we continue.
Moving forward, I like the idea of a matrix for determining, like, from a prioritization standpoint. I don't hate the idea of a cap. I personally do not want to dip into reserves. I would prefer to stay under 60.
And we had that discussion come out. I'm glad you're talking about that, because that's the discussion that we'll have after we come up with the breakdown for this.
Jumping ahead.
We do have a list of ideas.
Is Gwen's on Zoom? You said?
Yes.
Gwen, do you have any comments?
I am on the Zoom. They're all important. I would agree with the cap. The requests just get bigger and bigger, and I understand why. And I think, they're all good producers of hotel motel tax revenue. So I'm not sure what the answer is. There are a couple here that maybe I wouldn't be as concerned with, but they're really very small. So, but I agree, I don't want to go out of reserve. So I'm not sure what the answer is, and I don't know how we determine that tonight. But I do think it's very important to do as much as we can with the dollars.
I guess my opinion would be, I've said it before, that I think we need to focus on giving to people that haven't requested previously as well. And putting a limit on how many times someone can request. There's definitely the amounts have doubled on several. And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Limit number of times, what else did you say?
Number of times, and then
When,
focus on the folks that are the first time requesting.
Ron, do you have any comments?
My only real comment is I agree with Heather. I definitely don't want to dip into reserves. I don't want to go over the 60,000 amount.
I would say we're probably all in agreement on that.
Yeah.
My question to you, Andy, and maybe I should know this, are we at the maximum allowed by the state on hotel motel tax?
We're at 7%.
The question, I think, kind of comes back to Christina and John, you made a good comment here too about return on investment. I really have to say that from my perspective, return on investment, the first four really probably we get more back than we put in a lot of ways through our community, through local option sales tax, through events that are handled let's see, I would say the classic, the opera partnership, the county fair. I think we probably get more back in revenues than we actually pay out if you really look at it. I don't have the stats on that, but I would guess that's probably the case.
Well, and certainly the downtown merchants, produce a lot of the lost income that the lost income, I guess, is different than this. We're talking about hotel motel tax. But anyway, in reference to Christina's comment, I understand what you're saying, but I also think that's a pretty big jump to go from 0 to 50,000.
Yeah.
So as John said, I think there should be a cap on, what each person can request too. I think that was maybe a reaction to the chamber, which is a little bit of a different situation. So
I don't think we should be funding the merchants at 50,000. That's not what I was.
right. No, I know. And you and I talked about that.
Yeah.
So I've got some numbers here. So if you take the 6 organizations that have asked for 8,500 or more, and you funded it, so that'd be National Balloon Classic, Des Moines Metro Opera, Greater Des Moines Partnership, Warren County Fair, Indianola Public Arts, and the downtown merchants have all asked for more than 8,500 or 8,500, and you gave them all 8,500, and then you would be able to still fund the Concert Association at 500, the playground at 25, and the Keeping It All Beautiful at 65 or at 6,000, and that would be 60 grand. Let me check my math on that, but
No, you want to.
So basically anything 8,500 or more, you punch in 8,500.
basically, yeah. So it'd be
And
6 of
I like that, John. The only thing I would disagree with, I think the playground is a wonderful project, but I don't know that really produces any hotel motel tax revenue. So I would probably leave that one out. I realize it's a small amount. But
I think it should be funded if we have the funds to do it. It is part of the fairgrounds. And it does get a lot of use during the fair too.
And I would.
right. But I don't know that it draws in tax money, that's my only thinking.
Gwen, I wouldn't disagree with you, but going forward, yes. They've jumped into it this fray before we've had that, that.
Right.
conversation. So I would say in the future, no, because I would like to, hopefully we'll have some policies, you know, some, at least some input into what kind of a matrix or what kind of decision-making would be, what we're looking for these people. They have some direction, but we've also funded some things in the past that were even less than
Right.
as far as tied to the people visiting the community than the playground at the fairgrounds. So
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I know. And like we've said so many times, we really need some qualifiers on who can apply, what the limit can be, and what they have to do to qualify to apply.
Let's back up the cart just a moment here. Do we know why the National Balloon Classic doubled their request? Or is that something that they've done in the past on a regular basis and then we just end up giving them less than what they asked for? I mean,
yes,
that's usually the case. Okay.
they've asked for more in the past and
Right.
not funded it fully. So
Right.
I believe we've done that with. I believe we did that with the partnership as well. And I think maybe the fair, Warren County Fair, we've done that in the past as well.
Right. We have.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Okay.
Like what you.
I like
proposed there.
this.
I mean, it's clean and easy without having to deal with, like I said, I feel bad that I didn't push for that earlier to be able to, although they were already in before the new council came on, so it would have been last year's conversation, so. But yeah, I do think we need some direction, give people direction so that way they know what they're applying for, so that's fair to everybody. Makes our job easier too, because everybody's got a good need, you know, I mean,
And how do you decide what,
Right.
you know?
right, but this
It's
money is also
difficult.
coming from stays at the hotel. I mean,
Mhm.
that's, I know that was one of the things on the CPB board with Keshemoin. That's, they get asks all the time and it's always centered around what is your return on investment?
Right.
You know, kind of like what City of West Des Moines came in, big ask, and it created a huge controversy amongst the board. In fact, communities were really teetering on whether they were going to leave if West Des Moines got the money, but they were able to show that it was going to be a huge pickup of dollars on that Recplex, and it's already shown that. So
I would say your comment about maybe number of times they can request it, as long as the opera's in town, as long as the Classic is a functioning unit. And I think the partnership, and maybe even the fair, but I think those are things that obviously, as you go back on your comments about return on investment, I really think those bring themselves to the top. And so I would not want to put a cap on something like that, but maybe on some of the other things, and maybe we do put a matrix together that, Ben, is that something staff might be able to look at, is, you know, what kind of things that come in, and maybe it's first time is less than $5,000 or something like that, and kind
Can
of.
we- First, let's.
I think we're in agreement I think we're in agreement.
This now.
Gwen, can you see that?
I support
I can. And the only thing I would say, and this isn't as easy, I mean, I certainly like this. But there are two organizations that haven't asked before. And then they're getting as much as the ones that have asked, that are probably the big revenue producers. So I don't know. I mean, if I was doing it myself, I'd probably knock a couple down and add a couple, boost a couple, like I'd boost the opera and the classic, because I think those are probably our biggest producers. Maybe I'd bump those up 2,000 and drop the arts and merchants down just a little bit. But I think maybe, John, do you recall the first time, and Heather, the first time the fair requested, did we do anything the first time they requested?
Yes. Yeah, a few years ago.
We did? Okay,
Was like security, it was something specific that they
right.
asked.
Oh, that's right. I do remember that.
It was like 3 years ago.
I would say that the part of the Des Moines, the Indianola downtown merchants, I think, and I haven't been to one of their meetings lately, but some of the discussion was, that the disc golf was going to try to coordinate. I know there's been some issues with that. I think, Doug, there's some changes maybe in some of weren't they going to try to coordinate with the ridiculous days on that 25th date or the 24th date? And I know that there was that was one of the reasons they were asking, was to find some funds to help with some of the things they were doing with that. And I think that it makes some sense. I can go either way on whether or not we give them $8,500, but I do think it's well worth the time and money to do that since they're trying to coordinate, put those things together with disc golf and make some things happen there. But
Oh, and they're working very hard and they do great things. So I'm not, suggesting that we minimize what they're doing in any way. There just isn't enough money to go around.
exactly. And Gwen does kind of have a point, folks, to a certain extent that we usually get some requests or some things come up during the year that maybe we don't have a reserve on that area too. And I don't know if that's something we want to consider. I'm okay with this. I'm also okay with maybe taking some down a little bit. So we have a little bit of a cushion if something does happen. And I know that they're supposed to have the request in by a certain period of time, but there's always emergencies, I guess.
Still support.
Yeah, I support this for moving forward for now.
All right.
John, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm ready to be done talking about.
In sometime in after budget's over, we can just get that scheduled.
He's actually gonna go over a little bit of it right now.
All right, perfect.
So some of the ideas that we have, I have gone down a few ideas and then I went over these. And I think we came up with a couple more ideas. We have to keep the economic development purpose. So that's a directive from the state of Iowa auditor. Our auditor, Robert Andrus, will be checking on that. So that's some must keep that non-negotiable. So each requesting organization to make a follow-up presentation with the council, that's also something that is probably a directive that's going to come down from our auditor so that we know how those funds are being spent. So we're going to probably follow up later on this year with those organizations and say, hey, can you come in? Let's schedule a time during the study session to come in, make a presentation. And if you don't make a presentation, then maybe that's one of the things that we add to the matrix and say, okay, then you're not eligible for future requests. Limit future applications 5,000 or 10,000 annually. That's something that we can discuss further, whether or not we want to keep it at 5,000 or we have to 10,000. Maintain current list of requesters, and then new applicants must present to the council prior to inclusion. So this is mainly an idea of, okay, we've got these organizations that request each year. If we want to add another, because I usually send the applications out, I have maintained an email list, and then I send that application out to those organizations. If a new organization wants to be included on that list, then they have to come before the council and say, hey, this is the purpose of our organization. This is how we do it. And I mind if we're included on that list. Wait until the end of the budget cycle to receive requests. So we know that how much money we receive. We're probably not going to have an increase in hotel motel revenue until another hotel gets built. We have one that's perhaps in the works, but we know that roughly we have 200,000, and we know that our limit is around 60,000. So if we know that we can budget for it, and then maybe towards the end of the year, after we know what's going on at the State House, if there's going to do anything to limit our revenue in the future, that we know we'll still have that revenue available, and then we can send out the applications and people can request those.
You're saying more towards June timeframe versus
Yeah, I wasn't thinking more that late. I was thinking March or
April. Okay, and then rather than December, that does
That
make
makes
more
sense.
sense. Yeah.
that way we don't have it clouding over.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great
Budget
idea.
discussions. And then, if you guys have any other possible ideas, matrix.
Only thing I would like to add to that is like with the list of requesters and maintaining that list, are you saying that they would still have to submit that application or no?
Yeah, they would still have to.
Okay.
submit it.
That was my only thing is I want to make sure
Yeah.
that we're,
I'm just saying, I.
Due diligence.
I email them that application here, update the application.
And they would-
Yeah, fill it out.
be required to present like what they're going to be spending that money on as well.
Right, later on, they would have to say, come before and say, hey. and then-
I think that's part of isn't that part of the state auditor's requirements too, that they have to come present to the council or at least do
I
a
think
Follow up.
It's not. I don't know if it's something that he said verbatim, but it's probably a best practice.
And Andy, when you say must keep economic development purpose, you're implying there that it's that they're contributors to the hotel motel tax revenue?
Not necessarily just that they have an economic development purpose, like they bring in sales tax, they do retail and stuff like that.
Because I would say the downtown merchants wouldn't be so much, they wouldn't be so much hotel motel tax, they'd be more sales tax revenue, so. Yeah.
Well, it could
True,
be.
and that was kind of my point.
There may be a hotel, a few of them in there, but
That wine witches and brews, man,
Yeah.
that brought in people from all over.
Yeah.
You never know.
Well, we can definitely rework we do have this in the policy folder.
okay, good.
If you have any ideas, let me know, and then we can revamp that policy and bring it for a later discussion.
I think it'll make
It's a
it
great
much,
recommendation.
yeah, those are.
Great
Thank you,
start.
Andy.
Yeah, they are. Bring it back after budget cycle.
You read my mind.
Now I just wanted to go over the bills. I know you guys have been getting information on as far as how they're going to be impacting our revenue moving forward. SF 181, as you know, it was a bill that corrected the miscalculation for residential rollback. It did pass and it's signed by the governor yesterday. So what that directs the county auditors to go back, and some county auditors have already. Hey, we just have to restart all over again. So they do have a deadline of March 9th to present these new valuations. So we have at least a dozen, including Warren County, that are usually late. Say that Warren County, it's always late, but they have been the last couple of years, they've been late. So hopefully March 9th, they'll understand that we need to get evaluation so that we can move forward. The bill did allow for the extension of the budget adoption until April 30th, because we'll have to wait for those valuations. On the agenda tonight is the resolution to set the public hearing for the budget. I'm just requesting that I send an email to Ben and Jackie just to ask to have that cool. We can bring it back later. Department of Management is recommending that we wait and set that hearing until after March 9th, once we get all our evaluations. We can proceed with the maximum property tax dollars. SSB 1124. This would limit our assessment growth to 3.25%. There's a lot of other things involved with this bill that doesn't necessarily involve the city of Indianola, because the city of Indianola has historically not used all the tax levies in the general fund. There's different tax levies for insurance and for running transit and supporting the local library. What they're trying to do is they're trying to take a lot of these levies and combining them, what they're calling it combined general fund levy. And for cities that are above the 810 with these levies or below the 810 and have certain assessed valuation, they go up and down around the 810 levy. So they're trying to lower it below the 810 because they feel it shouldn't be above 810. So they did exclude a few of the levies, like the insurance levy and emergency levy. Well, the other ones, but anyway, for the city of Indianola, because we don't use those other levies, we're at the 810 for the general fund, and so the assessment growth is basically limited to 3.25%. They did amend it yesterday in the Senate Ways and Means Committee to make it not in effect until FY25. Basically because of SF 181, because it's going to go into effect for FY24, they decided, okay, we'll allow this one, we'll give you another year. So that's not into that now goes before the Senate, probably a Senate file. Now they'll change it to a Senate file, and then it goes over to the House for further discussion. Senate Study Bill 1125 makes changes to loss, makes it statewide, similar to the silo. Then the cities would receive reimbursement from the state for the local option sales tax. How much of it is 100% of what we're currently receiving? That's yet to be seen. They wanted to use some of that instead of basically they want to raise the sales tax from 5% to 6% and then use that extra cent as the local option sales tax to be reimbursed to cities and counties. They're doing away with the loss. They're increasing the sales tax and then using that 1% to reimburse the cities and counties, then using some of that for water quality projects. So how much of that reimbursement we actually receive, if we receive the 2.5 million that we currently receive, it's yet to be seen.
Well, the key there is going to be how many parts of the state currently don't have a local option sales tax. And that would be the revenue that they would use then. So there are parts of Warren County, for instance, that don't have local option sales tax.
Hackney doesn't have it.
Yeah, but there's also a lot of rural areas, so it would depend on the amount of money generated in those areas that currently don't have it. And then whether or not there'd be enough of that dollars to backfill the, is it the 3/8 or 2/7? I don't remember what it is. It goes to soil, soil, huh? 3/8. So 3/8 of that penny increase go then to conservation issues or items and expenses. And then the other 5/8 would then go back out to the cities or counties or school districts that have lost this funding. And my concern with that is, I think from a legal standpoint, if we've got monies, local option sales tax dollars tied into a bond, for instance, does that then, we don't receive the amounts of money that we're talking about, does that then mean we have to go out and renegotiate those bonds at a higher interest rate? And that's the concern, the real concern I have, besides the lost revenue, but that's a real concern that I have about whether or not we got to do that higher interest rate.
Well, I think what our bond that we have that was a geo bond backed by local option sales tax. So if you don't have local option sales tax to cover that bond note, you have to raise your debt service levy.
Right, but we would have to renegotiate that, wouldn't we, with the bond companies?
They don't, because right now we
General obligation bond.
Right. We're just, we've said that we're gonna pay it with that money, so
We haven't actually,
it's not tied officially.
there are places that have done
I'm
that.
sure, yep, I'm sure there are.
And so the question for those, and maybe that's not us. Andy, you gave me a number, I think, was it on, okay, Senate File 181, that was a $200,000, 220 hit, I think you said, if I'm not mistaken, is that right? Yeah, and then on the, was it the Senate Study Bill 1124, was that, there was $119,000 number there somewhere, was that your freshman?
Right. Let me go over 11.
Go ahead, Mark, go ahead, yeah.
The other things in 1125 was reducing the commercial industrial valuation from to 85% the first year and then 80% the next year. And then makes housing credits into exemption. So what that basically does is it'll take like the homestead credit and make an exemption. If it makes an exemption, that means that we don't get reimbursed for that. And what, just cruising through what we had received so far for FY23 for it, just the homestead credit was 150,000.
150,000?
So it's a substantial amount.
So we're probably talking between all the things that they're working on right now, we are probably in the neighborhood of almost $500,000 in. Is that what you would say?
Yeah, I would say it's close to this.
Yeah.
Real close. And there's the only good part about that is that we're not.
Well, yeah. But that also includes, and does a multifamily housing then drop to a full residential rate? Is that this year or next year? Because now it's at 60%, is that correct? The multifamily housing, or is it full residential?
It's folded completely into single family. So whatever single family residential they're talking about that going below 50,000, up to 2% next year, down to 49%. So be a substantial hit. So, so this was, actually for, Senate Study Bill, 1124, we're actually, it doesn't really have an effect for us this year. We did have a difference of 120,000. But we're off by about 50,000, but from what that restriction would be. What the restriction would be would limit us to a growth of 171,000, then 177,000. So you're seeing increases that probably aren't gonna keep up. My concern would be that it wouldn't keep up moving forward. So that's my concern with that bill. And then with 5, doing some quick calculations here, as far as 85% rollback would be a loss of 106,000, and then down to 80% would be 213,000.
So by fiscal year 2025, 26, it will be from where we are right now, will be that about that $500,000.
If so, then you see if the local option sales tax isn't available, the $1 million that we'd have to raise the back out.
That by limiting the growth to 3.25%. That let's say I went out and built an $800,000 house in the community, a few years of tax abatement. And the limit on that assessment is going to be limited to 3.5%. Maybe it'll increase in value that much. Maybe it won't increase in value that much. But assuming that most of the large and expensive properties do, does that not roll back then? Because like, for instance, my house was assessed at what, $158,000 or something like that. Doesn't that put that back on to those properties that are already assessed, don't have that kind of an increase? Don't we have to make up that difference? Is that making any sense to you?
As far as like 50%, like it's only tax.
Well, if they limit the growth to 3.5%, 3.25%.
Right.
Doesn't that shift the property taxes from those that maybe are going to increase in value faster than those that don't increase in value faster?
It could, or it could shift it over to commercial industrial. When you're looking at your tax levies, anything they do, as you know, they might do something to help out residential property owners, and then it just shifts the tax rate over to commercial industrial.
Punches the balloon and it comes out somewhere else. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. And that's exactly kind of what I was getting at. But by limiting in what they're doing with commercial property and lowering the ability of us to collect on that commercial property, then it further shifts that residential, in my thinking too. Existing residential.
One of the concerns that I hear from Metro finance directors that these are growing much fast, a little bit faster than what we are currently, that they're concerned that their demand for services is going to keep up with the population growth. Valuation growth, they might get more valuation, but their demand for service is going to.
Right. And one of the comments from one of the representatives I heard was that, well, we're not cutting services. That would be up to the local governments to do that. So.
You're just cutting the ability for us to get.
Yeah. It's not my fault. It's going to be their fault, right?
Yeah.
I'll be able to raise chickens.
Yeah, they'll be raising chickens and sell eggs, right? What I gave you folks too, I passed out some talking points on the exact same things. I think you probably might have amended a few of those or went through and maybe added some notes. I also got, may I say this, a comment from Chief Gia on impacts on the residential, which we didn't even talk about here. They want to also then limit the ability of local governments to be able to go beyond the statewide building code on residential properties. And I know, Chief, you had a question about that on fire safety, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't put that bill on here. I'd have to find it. Senate File 43 or Senate File 174.
I just was 184. the bottom, second paragraph up.
Okay. And I know Jackie made some comments too that were very appropriate. So anyway, I just think that if you do have a chance, please contact our state legislators. Thoughts one way or the other. These will have real and significant impacts on the city of Indianola as well as the county and school district as well. Anything else on that topic? We beat that horse to death. Ben, you're up. You got anything else?
To the hotel motel tax, I thought what you just demonstrated there is exactly what governance is, and that leads into this discussion. It really shows that you can have a diversity of thoughts and ideas, and you can talk and debate and come to consensus on what makes sense. Maybe not everybody's exactly happy with exactly the amounts that are distributed to each entity, but we come together, and that speaks volumes on what a really good elected body should be working towards. And we were supposed to be talking tonight about the police department's report, and Chief Chair is out ill today. So I'm kind of filling the gap, taking a little bit on our discussion about at the retreat about vision and setting goals and objectives and being strategic, and also on how to work better together. And one of the things that I wanted to share is an idea and a concept, and I think I've shared a little bit of something called Indianola University. It's election season, and election season is when people usually come out of the woodwork to really start, hey, I've got an issue, I'm going to come and talk about this issue. And that's great. That's the American way. It's the healthy thing. That's what we should be embracing. But a lot of times, those who are running for office, and you probably all felt this and experienced this, you don't necessarily have the equal footing to understand. You pull as much information off the website as you can, but being able to get some of your questions answered and building a good working relationship so you can hit the ground running if you are elected is really important. And so in my last community, we had something called Santaquin University. And basically, we went from having 13 people run for 3 council seats. And it was a very divisive time to 2 elections later. Nobody actually ran because it was running so well that all the incumbents ran and there was no election. It went that far of a swing. Because when people are happy and things are running really well, as elected leaders, you're leaving a legacy, you're making a difference, you feel good about it, you want to perpetuate what you're doing, and the community has your back and wants to support you. And the big thing that we did to try to embrace that was something called Santaquin University. And really it was an opportunity for anyone considering running for office to sign up for basically a 6-week course where they spent one night a week with each of the functional areas of the city, and went out and shot some simulation ammunition or sprayed the hose or took a tour of the sewer treatment plant, build working relationships with each one of the department directors, build a relationship with each other as co-people running for maybe the same seat. And in doing that, had a better interaction because now you're talking about the issues and not the character of the person you're going up against. And when you have a question, you already have a source to come and get those answers from the department directors. And at the same time, you know where to turn to. And like I said, when you hit the ground running in January, you actually have a relationship already built and you feel comfortable. And that's really what it's all about. This is just a sample of what we had used on the first night, which was, talking about the form of government, the powers and duties, why can't we get along? Council protocols, our charter, which I think during our retreat, they kept calling it a compact, how you're going to interact with each other. And the mission and goals and the organizational chart and where they can get answers, and how they can utilize the tools that you have. And so this is just a quick video. I have a couple of videos here. We won't have time for 2 of them, but what's it like to be a new elected leader?
Or I have run for city council of Corinth City. It's a big change going from candidate Jones to councilwoman Jones. The mode shifts from running for office to actually executing the duties of office practically overnight. Pretty scary. Yes, everyday citizens like Oakley Nelson and most of the people you see in this room are now stepping into a very big role, that of city leader. Every 2 years, the Utah League of Cities and Towns gets together with newly elected officials across the state to go over some important how-tos.
For the elected officials, I think the most. So they understand. Hopefully.
Everything from managing roads to managing meetings.
Basic information from this is what the city council looks like. This is how you make a procedure in the city council meeting to this is how an economic development area works. And this is the process of adopting an ordinance or a resolution.
The weight was certainly on my shoulders. So, confidence of all those who voted for me and those who didn't on my shoulders. Important that I make decisions with all included. So that I want to be able to do us better off.
At this stage of the newly elected game, there is plenty of food for thought here, such as dealing with matters that will become issues in the legislature
It's going to be very, very fast.
and dealing with the media. So just for experience sake, we give a good-hearted new council a taste of what most executives dread, the public accusation. Allegations and praise when the city reporter is accused of taking $50,000 from the city council. How do you respond? This mock media attention is always fun to do. No, no one is accused of anything naughty. That is a stark lesson. There are many facets to government administration. It may at times feel overwhelming, but there is one very simple thing to remember. Basically, everyone who is chosen to be here did it for one reason.
I love the people and I'm excited to learn.
So for me to be.
Someone's been interested in Boulder City, lived there for 50 years. When they get back.
What do Utah League of Cities and Towns? I'm Susan Wood.
That's what it really comes down to, that you want to give back. And yet people a lot of times are intimidated by the fact that I have to run a campaign. And then once you get into office, holy cow, now I have to do something with that, right? But I fundamentally believe that there's only two criteria that's required for you to run for office. And that is you have to have integrity. You absolutely have to not do it because of self-fulfilling reason, meaning I've got an agenda I want to fulfill because I'm a developer and I want to get some kind of deal or something. So if you have integrity in why you're running, and two, you love the community, that's it. Everything else can be learned along the way, and you have great staff that you can rely on. And that's what it's about, is building trust and coming out and having a night with the water pollution control or the streets and stormwater, community and economic development and administration, and then being able to have the fun of shooting the guns and squirting the hose and all that kind of thing. People just don't realize how much is involved in local government. And if you really want to think about it, it's kind of like a triangle. Most of your taxes are the inverted triangle. Most of your taxes actually go to the federal level, middle of the state, and the smallest amount actually comes to the city. But the services that you receive every day is the regular triangle, the up pointed triangle. You have a call, you need an ambulance, you want your road plowed, you want to go down and enjoy the park, you want to turn your faucet on and brush your teeth in the morning, everything that you on that local level. And so it's learning what is important for a community and understanding how you interact as elected leaders. You basically are the guiding body for us as staff. You set the policy, you set the direction, and oftentimes we get a little bit derailed on how deep should I go? Or as staff, sometimes we get confused and we start making recommendations and getting pushy into the elected level, and that's not our job. You're the elected leaders, all that type of thing. So it helps us to understand. I won't go into all of this. We're probably a good point to talk about the break between our meetings, but it gets into what our mission is, our compact, what our compact will be once that's fully formed, what our goals will be, getting away from the tactical, but more into the strategic. And recognizing what tools you have as elected leaders, that you set that budget policy document, you set that strategic plan, and you set the code that helps us operate each and every day. Because we can do anything. I'm absolutely confident in our staff that we have a fantastic staff. We really can do anything, but we can't do everything. And when we try to do everything, we don't do anything well. And so I always use the analogy, we're the car, you're the drivers, and you need to help set that course of the direction that we're following. We're doing that right now in the establishment of what our values and our priorities are. We're looking at the priorities for 2022 and trying to update those. I think we've taken a good start, but it's also understanding that we have to have balance. A community is great because it is balanced. You have a strong foundation of public safety. You are focusing your efforts on having a good essential services, clean water, clean, plowed streets, good parks, all that thing. That brings in people as far as economic prosperity and investment of new jobs, and that creates a clean. That's what it's all about, is making a difference in people's lives and making it why they want to choose Newville as their home. So I'll end there.
Can I just say that had this been in existence, when I ran 2 years ago, that would have helped out so much for a year and a half ago. I mean, that's awesome.
We've taken some of our greatest adversaries and thorns and made them some of our greatest advocates because they really get in and understand how complex. And in fact, I just distinctly remember we had somebody who was just so anti-sewer treatment plant. And we had them come in and it was budget night and they were using monopoly money and putting money towards projects. And then suddenly they had to turn their money over. You can't spend this type of money on this over here. You can't spend that type of money on this over here. And it suddenly became, really apparent. You guys have your hands tied on so much. So it made him much more empathetic.
It's not getting easier either.
While I appreciate what the League of Cities does, better to have it more local and focused specifically on Indianola.
Right.
I think that enhances it. That's awesome.
I would say one last thing, and I just reiterate what I said in that meeting we had Tuesday or 2 weeks ago or so. I really appreciate all of your perspectives and all of the things you bring to the table. And I think we've come so far in a year that it's just amazing to me, but I think we all work together well. I mean, I think the discussion earlier this evening is just a great example of it. So but just kudos to all of you. So
You want certificates, a t-shirt, you graduate.
there you go.
Awesome.
Any other comments? Any other thing on the agenda you want to discuss beforehand? We're good then. We'll adjourn until 7 o'clock for the meeting.
2023. We would write the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jackie, would you pull the roll?
Councilmember Hewlin.
Here.
Parker.
Present.
Selby.
Here.
Schroeder.
Present.
Peach. Here. Richardson.
Present.
Mayor Erickson.
Present. Moving on to item number 4, which is the oath of office. I have the pleasure and honor of swearing in 2 new police sergeants this evening. We'll start with Police Sergeant Brad Metcalf and Police Sergeant Ty Sparks. Brad. We'll try to swear you in as a fire. Going back there. We still need to get it framed. Get it in one of these.
Sounds good.
I will have you raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Brad Metcalf,
I, Brad Metcalf,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties
discharge all the duties
of a police sergeant
of a police sergeant
of the city of Indianola,
of the city of Indianola,
Iowa.
Iowa,
How do you say that then? As now or hereafter required by law.
as now or hereby after required by law.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
At least keep doing it up and down. So we'll have you sign this and then, probably. Right. Right. And then when we're all done, if your families want to come up, take pictures up here. The emblem's pretty nice. All right, raise your right hand. I, Ty Sparks,
I, Ty Sparks,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States,
and Constitution of the State of Iowa,
Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
that I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties
discharge all the duties
of a police sergeant,
police sergeant
of the city of Indianola, Iowa,
of the city of Indianola, Iowa,
as now
as now
or hereafter required by law.
or hereafter required by law.
Congratulations. Right, I'll get out. Rob, get up here. Rob is the acting chief.
I'm not sure where to get you.
Shortness in here.
I know, right?
Amy, you're supposed to go up and down. I don't know.
Supposed to do that.
That's what all the teenagers say these days. So your families, if you do want to, more than welcome to have a picture up here.
I think that's okay.
Yeah, we're good. All right, thank you.
I mean, it's pretty attractive. I get it. Thank you all.
Go get some revenue.
Let everyone kind of get out of here and then we will move on to item number 5. Just as the staff and everyone here, there will be a retirement party on February 28th from 11:30 to 1 in the training room at City Hall. Public is invited to attend as well too.
Time on that again?
It is 11:30 to 1. Is Rick here? Yeah. I saw Rick. Oh, there you are. You're hidden. I think I'll have Kevin and Rick come up here. Thank you. Might be better if I read it in front of the microphone though.
Just
Right here. All right, Kevin, you can come stand awkwardly up here with me. Come on, Rick. We need you in here too. Well, Jack here, Andy, we'll let you take this for him. All right, so I'm gonna read a recognition of service for you, Kevin. Whereas Kevin Crawford is retiring effective February 28th, 2023 from the position of a grade 3 water pollution control operator after nearly 46 years of service. And whereas a water pollution control operator is a viable position for the city to function, whose service is necessary for every home and business within the city. And whereas Kevin fearlessly and tirelessly fulfilled his duties as a water pollution control operator throughout his nearly 46 years of employment and service of the Indianola community. And whereas during his service, Kevin was awarded for his outstanding customer service, it was inducted into the Golden Manhole Society. And whereas the entire community of Indianola greatly appreciates the work and individual sacrifice put forth by Kevin and fulfillment of those duties. And whereas Kevin Crawford and his camaraderie, mentorship, and love of the community will be missed. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the elected and appointed body of the city of Indianola, Iowa, that Kevin Crawford and his years of dedicated service to the Indianola community are hereby recognized and appreciated. And be it further resolved, all citizens of Indianola, Iowa are urged to recognize this distinction Kevin's efforts has brought to our community, applaud and celebrate this occasion, and to participate in our upcoming celebrations. Congratulations, Kevin. You're really close to our faces.
Always tells me.
I don't have to have one.
Up and down, right?
Yes, she's taking it right. That's supposed to make it skinnier.
Hey,
Up
go
and
back
down.
to
Thank you so much,
Well, thank
Kevin.
you.
We appreciate you so much.
Well, I appreciate.
We will be at your retirement
the
party.
mayor's
Sync on me.
Right. Enough talking from me tonight. We will move on to item number 6, which is public comment. If you have something to comment on that is not on the agenda, you can come now and state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, there any items that need to be pulled off the consent agenda?
Here, I will pull claims, please.
Anything else? Can I get a first and
Go ahead. Make a motion.
second motion to approve with
Second.
exception of B?
I just have a question on K. Ben or the chief can answer this one, but are we at the maximum amount we can charge for those services? That was my only question.
Perfect. Any other highlights on here, Ben, that were mentioned?
Just the setting of a public hearing for the fiscal 23 annual budget. You're wonderful.
We can hold it.
Item number 5 is a pay request for Williams Brother that does incorporate the change order that the council had approved previously, your previous meeting. Second consideration on the Wesley Life Community PUD. Third consideration of the PUD for Missouri Valley. Third consideration of the change to the Sustainability Committee, bringing it down from 9 to 7 board members. The bylaws that do the same. Sustainability Committee, and we just talked about the for Squaw Creek.
I knew it. We were gonna amend the agenda by pulling NAC.
And AC is needing to be pulled.
Okay.
Then your motion.
I can amend my motion to pull that 10 AC, then is what we're doing. And you'll take a second.
Take the second, yep.
Miller? All right.
Councilmember Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Dalby,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Moving on, can I get a first and second motion to approve?
Second.
Any question? Jackie?
Councilmember Dalby,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Use.
Parker,
Aye.
Move on to council reports. I need a first and second motion to receive and file the January 2023 treasurer's report.
Second.
You and discussion.
I had a couple of questions I asked Andy, and I apologize for not getting these out earlier. I was a little late this weekend getting into the council agenda. But I asked about the income on interest rates for this year and what that is normally. And so just kind of have that information. Andy, if you just email that to everybody when you get a chance, take a look at that. I'd appreciate it. And then you mentioned on the RFPs, we will be doing something for banking. Is that what?
Yeah, we had a contract with True Bank and I think it was for 5 years and we extended another 3 years and March will be coming up at the end of that 3 years. So we'll be sending out an RFP for bank.
Thank you.
Just a couple of quick things, Mayor, that I wanted to point out through the report. In case you're wondering about it, we do have a negative balance in the fund for the D&D fund 353, which is now the real property improvement fund. That's just waiting for funds for the sale of the property to the Warren County Historical Society. And then the sewer revenue bond fund, we did pay interest on bond notes that was due December 1st, and that's just waiting to transfer funds from that. So that's why there's negative balance.
Great, thanks, Andy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item B, I need a first and second motion to receive and file the January 2023 EMS billing activity report.
So moved.
Discussion? And this is like 2 months in a row.
It's got dry.
You guys are doing a good job. Right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? On to item number C, I need a first and second motion on the appointment of Stephen Gray to the Sustainability Committee for a term beginning immediately and ending July 1st, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Becky?
Councilmember Schroeder,
Aye.
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Dalby.
Aye.
Motion passes. Welcome aboard, Steve. We'll move on to the Metro Advisory Committee report from Councilmember Richardson.
Well, we've kind of beat this horse a lot tonight because the entire discussion on the Metro Advisory Committee was on Senate File 181, Senate Study Bill 1124 and Senate Study Bill 1125. In addition to those bills, they were talking about Senate File 34, which would prohibit local governments from having a stormwater regulations more stringent than the state. They expect the Home Builders Association to keep pushing that through, and there's looking for a subcommittee meeting here in the future on that. Let's see if there's something else here that I think would be worth mentioning. There's what a bill, Senate File 182 would allow a bill, the creation of land development trust as a redevelopment tool. They call it land banks in the past. It's been being sponsored by some senators. It has good support in the Senate, and what the future is unclear in the status. League is kind of neutral on that one right at the moment until they figure out what's coming out on that. Pretty much, the bill, House File 150 would allow for a city county that's acquiring property via condemnation to seek to have the amount of damages provided to property owner reduced by the amount of additional costs incurred as a result of the property owner not responding. And that does have some sense for us, but again, maybe down the road and some condemnation we may be looking at in the future, but those are the things that they talked about, and that was the entire meeting. It took about an hour and 20 minutes. So that's enough of that.
Thank you for that. Move on to the mayor's report. I just want to, pull items and employees to recognize the streets department. Fabulous job with the amount of snow that came down. So heavy, so fast. Chief Chia this morning was a little bit of a hero in a county supervisors meeting that was definitely breaking some fire code. I thought it was gonna get pushed back into a corner. There's a lot of people there. Have Eric here tonight from the Mayor's Youth Council. Mayor's Youth Council is doing something a little bit different. John, you're getting a pass. They actually wanted to know if you would do it, but I told them no, because you had knee surgery. We'll be participating in Ridiculous Days this year and doing a walk a mile in her shoes. It's just gonna actually be around probably the block, but we're gonna give you the pass and not make you walk in high heels.
Oh, I can do that.
Well, if that needs feeling up to it, I'll tell
I
him.
can do that. I'm never too proud to do that. My
We,
wife would appreciate it.
until you break a hip.
Right.
You'll understand. So the Mayor's Youth Council, we have a meeting tomorrow to work on finalizing some of that. I want to thank Amanda and Ashley with the chamber. They put on a phenomenal event. And then we welcomed our K-9 officer Kilo last week. Officer Trey Nixon will be doing that, and they will be heading off to training. And I think is it mid-March, they'll be back, or end of March, you know?
I don't know.
Yeah, straight from Belgium. Is that where
Belgium.
dog was from? So,
Somewhere,
yeah, beautiful dog.
I bet it is.
So that is really exciting to have that. And then we had a really successful retreat on February 7th. Seems so long ago, but it's the day after our last meeting, and identifying some strategic goals for us. So that's about it.
Yeah, I want to jump on what Steve said it earlier. I do want to thank everybody. I thought it was a phenomenal meeting, and I think we've come a long ways, and it's pretty cool to see, and makes me quite happy to say that we have a incredible working relationship as a council. So it's awesome, and I think they were impressed as well too.
They were very impressive. So Andy, huge props to you for introducing us to Cassandra.
Yeah.
That's a big win for us. So
I'm excited about that process. Yep.
absolutely. Different of a process than we've done before. So
Yep.
Much improved.
it's exciting. It's exciting for the whole city. So. And you say it's 10C. So
Let's see.
we'll wait till we get to that point to amend the agenda, or
We already
No, we
did.
already-
you already.
Okay, through amending my,
All right, so fiscal year 24 budget. I need a first and second motion to open the public hearing regarding the maximum property tax dollars for the city of Indianola fiscal year 24 budget.
Second.
Thank you, Jackie.
Councilmember Richardson,
I,
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Colby,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Mayor, members of council, this is the portion of the process in the adoption of FY 24 budget where we have the council consider the maximum property tax dollars to be certified for FY 24 for all levies except for the debt service levy. Currently, the notice that we had published for the hearing was the liability insurance levy of 28 cents for 180,000. Underneath the notice, the council can lower the amount of property tax dollars, but not increase what was published in the notice. Retreat. And we viewed the new personnel requests that the department heads were making, and the council decided they ranked the requests and decided that there were a couple of requests there that could hold off on and pay that 180,000 so that our levy would be at the same level as it is currently for FY 23. The notice amount of 6.1 million minus 180,000 is 7,983,356. So that's the amount that the council wishes to proceed with. We would have to have you make a motion for that amount in the resolution. Currently, that puts the general fund FY 24 at 25% fund balance. There is a little bit of a cushion there for once we know what those valuations from Senate File 181 is. We do have a little bit, about 200,000, so we'll be right at 25% policy level. With that, I'll take any questions. I did have another slide here per Councilmember Seeger's request for levies. This was a comparison with our comparables from the 2022 compensation study with the overall levy. So these levies also include debt service, and this is where we fall with those cities. Right about the medium with staying at the current level, 1354.
So Andy, we had a lot of discussion tonight on fiscal impact by state legislation.
Correct.
We've taken into consideration about 180,000 in this budget. Is that correct?
Yes.
We're in that neighborhood. And so we're absorbing about another 40,000 from Senate File 181. Then is that kind of what we're doing in that sense?
Yeah, well, we were increasing the general fund by 108,000 with those personnel requests with the 28-cent levy. We decided to put a hold on those positions, so that would save that amount of money, about 200,000 or about 180,000. So we're able to remove that additional funding. We were going to put those positions on hold, but we are still about 200,000 over the 25% policy. You're anticipating losing from
File 181. As far as the personnel requests on hold, then is that suggesting then it'll be a full fiscal year then before we bring those folks?
I think what we were discussing a full year for the assistant library director and maybe 6 months for the combination inspector. It depends on how much development that we have this coming year. We have seen a slowdown in housing development and things like that. So currently, I don't think it's much of an issue right now. You know, they do have a lot of work to be done, but if we do see a huge uptake in development, then we'll may need to look at having that person come on or finding other options such as.
Any other questions for Andy?
I do have one other one then, is if we see Senate Study Bill 1124 and 25 moving forward, then we may have some ramifications from those then as
Yeah, and that's why we're asking the council to hold off on setting the public hearing.
Yeah.
We know what the valuations are and those bills do move forward.
Okay.
Is there anyone wishing to speak on this matter? And address. Yes. Okay, any other questions before we go?
So it technically it's about, if I read this right, it's a 2% increase about looking at in the maximum. Is that correct? You said 102% from maximum.
For the increase of property tax dollars, it's about 3.5.
Which is well under inflation. Thank you.
Need a first and second motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Jackie.
Councilmember Dolly,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
And that motion is at that.
Just to close the public hearing.
Beach,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Right, so moving on, I need a first and second motion on the resolution improving the fiscal year 24 maximum property tax dollars for the city of Indianola.
And can we get clarification if it's the 8-1 or the 7-9?
7-9.
Okay, three. Want to make sure that was understood by everyone.
So you making the motion?
I'll make a motion, yes.
You have to state it. You have to say, I make a motion.
I make a motion to approve maximum
Yeah, 7 million.
property tax dollars of $7,983,356.
Second.
Perfectly said. Right, Jackie?
Councilmember Schroeder,
Aye.
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Dalby.
Aye.
All right, so we have pulled item C, which is setting our public hearing, which we are holding off until we find out what's going on with Senate File 1124 and 1125.
Just to clarify, that's the maximum we can go, but we may end up lower than that when we get up. So.
Moving on into other business, city managers report from Ben Reed.
I really don't have a lot. You covered most of that in the mayor's report. Really do appreciate the read through, also the PD for their response this week to an unfortunate incident in our community and in their professionalism that they showed throughout that event. And that's all I have unless the council has any questions.
I need a first and second motion to enter into closed session in accordance with Iowa Code Section 21.51J to discuss the purchase or sale of particular real estate only where premature disclosure could be reasonably expected to increase the price the governmental body would have to pay for the property or reduce the price the governmental body would receive for the property. Thank you, Jackie.
Councilmember Richardson.
Aye.
Hewlin, aye. Parker.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Few minutes and. Okay, it's.